So, hello everyone. Today we have with us Puneet. Puneet is a final year computer science undergraduate at IIT Hyderabad, and he's quite an achiever. He is a member of Lab 1055, which is Machine Learning and Vision Group. He was a summer intern at Adobe Media and Data Science Research Labs. His publications have been published at WACV, ECML, and ECCV as well. Today, we are going to discuss his work, which was presented at ECCV. The work is Attributional Robustness Training using Input Gradient Spatial Alignment. We're glad to host you, Puneet. Please go ahead.
Sure. Thanks, Shambhavi, for inviting me, and hello, everyone, and thanks for joining. So yeah, let me get started. So like I will take a bit of pauses in between the slides so that we can discuss if there are any doubts and so.
Yeah. So yes, that will be great. Yeah.
So the topic of my talk is like attributional robustness training and using input gradient spatial alignment, and it's a work which is done in collaboration with the Adobe Media and Data Science Research Lab. So yeah, so before starting with the actual method and also let me go to the background and all that is needed to understand what is attributional robustness and what we are actually doing. So the very first thing I want to talk about is adversarial attacks. So in machine learning, what is the common like a procedure is you have some data and you kind of split it on training and test data, and you train on your training data and report your the performance of your model on test data. So like let's say you achieve like 95% accuracy on test data, and you are kind of happy that yeah, I have achieved this much of accuracy and I am better than someone else who have achieved let's say 80 or 84% of accuracy on that particular test data. But maybe like this kind of thing is enough for like competitions that you are going for Kaggle and all, but there's a lot of things that you haven't still considered in while training the model or by testing the performance of the model, which might be relevant when you are kind of deploying that particular model in real scenarios. So like in real scenarios, the data may not come from, so the very first assumption that you actually made is that you split your data set into training and testing. That essentially means that more or less your training data is similar to your testing data, right? But it might not be possible in real scenarios because the testing data might get somehow corrupted. Like maybe you get some rotated kind of image, you get some corrupted version of image, and you want to kind of classify that particular image correctly, because as a humans we are invariant to such kind of corruptions. Like we are invariant to such kind of small deformations in the input example. So the very first kind of, so like in 2015 or something, Ian Goodfellow came up with the like he observed a intriguing phenomena known as adversarial vulnerability of the neural networks. What he observed was like you have a model which let's say you have an image of a robin, and you have a deep neural network which is trained to classify the category of these birds. So you pass this particular image to the neural network and it says with a confidence of 0.65 that it's robin and it's correct in its prediction. But what you observe that like if you kind of add a very imperceptible noise, which is not random completely, it is somehow calculated in a very using some optimization. So if you add that particular noise to that particular image, the resulting image is almost indistinguishable from the original one. But what now happens is that if you pass that particular image to the neural network, the prediction of the network completely changes. Like on the robin, which was with 0.65 confidence, it got predicted as a Wiffle iron with a very high confidence, nearly 1 confidence. So this highlights that the neural network are not really as much robust as we think them to be. So even like small noises, imperceptible noises, which doesn't really affect how the images look, can really change the decision of the particular neural network. And if you kind of see this kind of vulnerability poses a threat to neural networks, because you want to kind of apply these neural networks ultimately in domains like navigation and healthcare. what if like somehow due to some environmental factors which may arise, maybe due to how you click a particular photo or what are the brightness and all, the environment factors somehow become adversarial such that the given image now becomes an adversarial image, and instead of predicting the right uh, label, it predicts a wrong label with a very high confidence. So this poses a serious threat to the models. So this is one of the things that we need neural networks to make robust against uh, adversarial attacks. So like if you are getting 95 or 96% accuracy on test data, it doesn't necessarily means that your network is worth deploying somewhere else. You need to look at other aspects also. So talking about like what are the methods in which you can create an adversarial example, is one of the popular method is projected gradient descent. So it is more or less like optimization technique which can be used anywhere else. And right now we are using it to find the adversarial image. So as you can see in the figure, right, what we have is like we have an example S for which we want to calculate the adversary. And what we want to do is, because we want to calculate the noise, minimum noise, such that the resultant image should not be much distinguishable from the original image. So we surround the example X with a L2 norm ball, which is of certain, you can say, radius according to our needs, like how much we want to put away and all. So as you can see in the figure, it depicts the loss landscape of neural network in like the small neighborhood of X. So at X, it is very low. That means that the loss is very less and it is able to predict right. And in some regions, it is very high, and in some regions, it is very moderate. So what we want to do is like, what we do in projected gradient descent is we have an input X, we randomly initialize, and we reach to a point 1. So this is some randomly perturbed example of X. But now we want to find the adversary. So we move in the gradient which maximizes its loss function and reaches a point where the loss function is maximum. So in this way, we reach a point which is itself in its local neighborhood of input example X, and the loss function is very high. And as the loss function is very high, we can say that the example is now misclassified. And because it's still in this L2 radius of the L2 ball, we can say that it is still indistinguishable from the original image. So as I said, like this projected gradient descent is a very kind of general technique, that optimization technique that can be used to find like any type of adversarial examples. Like let's say you want to find adversarial examples for object detection task. So the only thing you need to do is like you need to change how your loss function look like. So in object detection, let's say we use the naive regression bounding box loss. So in this loss function, rather than standard cross entropy loss that we use for classification, we will have a regression based bounding box loss. And we can use the same optimization technique to find an adversarial example for object detection also. So now we know that almost all neural networks are vulnerable to these adversarial examples. You can just calculate that particular noise and the accuracy simply goes to 0. So what we now need to do is like we need to come up with a method which can boost the adversarial robustness of the training or model. So the very popular and a very yet simple method is adversarial training. And the idea behind adversarial training is very simple. What you do is that you know how to calculate an adversarial example. You just pass that example while you are training the network. So we can say that the adversarial training is kind of an ultimate data augmentation, because we are trying to find the worst case augmentation that should be added to the input, and then you are trying to classify that particular light. So all the intermediate perturbations we can assume that will automatically classify as right. So below you can see how the regular training and adversarial training are different. So in regular training, you have a loss and you directly optimize that particular loss function to find a theta which minimizes that particular loss. But in adversarial training, you want to minimize the worst case adversarial loss. And this worst case adversarial loss is defined as, like, you can calculate it by by calculating it on the adversarial example rather than the natural example. So here the loss is on actual example, but here you find a delta which maximizes this particular loss, and you try to further minimize it with
So,
respect to the network parameters.
Puneet,
Yeah.
how do we define this delta? And shouldn't the loss be completely like one, like a complete? Shouldn't it be a very lossy case? And how do we define delta?
Yeah, so this capital delta here. So let's say, okay, so generally what we have is images. We have images in range 0, 1. Like no, if we use the tensor notation, we have images in 0 to 1, 0 denoting the black and 1 denoting the white pixel. So what we say is that, let's say a particular pixel is 0.5. What we want to do is that we are allowed to perturb it at max, let's say 0.01. So it will become from 0.05, it can become 0.051 and 0.049, 0.49. So this is the range that we specify, that this is the range in which you can perturb that particular pixel. So this delta denotes that particular limit or the maximum perturbation that you are allowed. Of course, yes, you can use a smaller perturbation, but this is the maximum budget you are given.
Okay, so one thing, that limit or that dimension is manually defined, and we have to choose the maximum possible dimension which creates the error or which creates the attack.
No, so yeah, so that is manually defined, that's for sure. And but you need to find the minimum perturbation.
Minimum.
So you need to try to come up with a minimum kind of budget across, let's say usually in CIFAR, but you use it that you can perturb with you can perturb the image with 8 by 255. So like researchers have found that this is like well suited kind of maximum perturbation that we can use, because like going beyond that, the thing is like the image started becoming like distinguishable from the actual images. So you need to keep the budget as minimum as possible so that the image should not be distinguishable from the original one.
So this range is very much dependent on the data set that we are using. It is data set specific, and also it is a hit and trial kind of approach. We don't have an algorithm to find this data, right?
Yes. Yeah, it is pretty much manually defined. But right now, like if you see the literature, they have kind of fixed the value for almost all the data set. They usually use 8 by 255 as the maximum perturbation that you can actually perturb with the data set. They use it for CIFAR and they use it for ImageNet. So it is pretty much like fixed in the literature, but it depends upon you. You can change it in whatever way you want.
Yeah, thank you. Please continue.
Hello, Puneet.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Go
Yeah,
ahead,
yeah.
Nikhil.
So we are choosing this delta so that the output label doesn't change, right?
No, we want to change the output level. So like as you can see in this figure, we want to find this particular minimum noise that should be added to this particular input so that it changes the particular label.
So if the delta permitted is high, then obviously output may change in that case.
Yes. So that's why we say that this should be as minimum as possible, because then if the delta is very high, then it's obvious, like you can just perturb it with the maximum thing and it obviously will get misclassified. But we want to keep the delta as minimum as possible, because so that as a human we should not be able to distinguish between this noisy version and this original version.
Yeah, thank you.
One basic doubt, Puneet. How is this perturbation added, like visually?
Yeah, so it's just like tensor addition. So you have this image represented as a tensor. So it will be like dimension, let's say it has 3 channels and 128 resolution. So it will be 3 cross 128 cross 128 tensor, and same the noise, and you just can add it using tensor addition. I mean, it's just normal addition.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So right now what we have talked about is how we can make our model robust to adversarial attacks, like the worst case perturbation that should be added to particular input so that it completely misclassifies. So the next thing we want to ask is, like, let's say you have right now have achieved a very good accuracy on your test set, and then you have achieved your accuracy well on this perturbed, adversarially perturbed data set also. But now you want to say that, okay, so I want to deploy it in particular use case, let's say healthcare, in which, let's say we have a image of an tissue in which it has some tumor and all, and our model needs to predict if the particular tissue has a tumor and all, and it needs to give us with an explanation as to why, I mean, why its decision is right. I mean, why should we believe that the decision made by the neural network is right? I mean, we cannot blindly trust on the neural network decision. We need to kind of have some explanation, explanation-based method that shows that, okay, so this is the region where the neural network is focusing, and because it is focusing on the right part, the decision made by the neural network is trustworthy. So regarding that, so a lot of kind of image attribution methods have emerged like in past 2-3 years, and like some of them are listed here, like integrated gradients, GradCam. So as you can see in the figure, the idea kind of is very simple. So you have an image particular, and so it is correct. Let's say it is classified correctly by the model, but you want to know that if your particular model is able to focus on the right parts or not. So you generate an attribution map of this particular method, and as you can see from this, so it's like an intensity map. So the low intensity map means that your network is not focusing on that particular area of the image, and high intensity means that neural network is focusing more on that particular portion of the image. So from the attribution map here, you can see that in these regions where the intensity is very high, it belongs to the like the shape and the texture of the particular bird. So we can say that yes, the neural network decision is trustworthy because it is indeed focusing on the right object that we are expecting it to. So these are known as kind of the image attribution methods, which help us to kind of you can say qualitatively understand whether the neural network is trustworthy or not. So yeah, so here is like one of the popular methods is like integrated gradients, and I mean, you can check more on their paper. So it is like the formula they used is something like this. It involves using first order gradients and all. So now let's say we now have a method to find what regions of the image the neural network is focusing on. So yeah, so like analogous to adversarial attack, but we can also show that these particular image attributions are not themselves robust. I mean, let's say you have a particular image. Yeah, so let's say you have this particular image, and it is classified correctly. And what you want to find is you want to find a perturbed version of this particular image. So perturbation, I'm referring to exactly the same kind of perturbation that we discussed in the adversarial robustness. So you have an original image, you perturb it with some kind of noise, and now let's say so for these two images, the prediction of the network is same, but the attribution map that we are finding are completely different. So what this says is like even even your network is able to make the right prediction, it might not be able to explain it in the right way. So even if this original image and the perturbed image are classified correctly.
Puneet, you can take
Yeah.
the pointer at the bottom, just click on it.
Yeah.
Very much clear. Yes.
Yeah. So what it necessarily says is that you can come up with an perturbed version of the image such that both look same and both are actually classified as correctly by the neural network. If you see like on what part of the neural network is focusing to make that particular decision, that might be completely different. So it poses again a serious threat two models which are used in healthcare, which will be used in healthcare, because let's say you have an image of a particular tissue which has some tumor, and neural network says that that particular image has tumor. But if you want to see where is the tumor located and you generate its attribution map, it completely, like the attribution map is completely different from where the tumor is located. So you won't be able to even trust the network, even though it is able to make the right predictions. So this is again like the problem if you are kind of using, if you are using neural network for your particular kind of project or something like deployment. So we have kind of discussed two kind of problems that right now are important to address. The one is adversarial robustness. Just summarizing it, so adversarial robustness is how you can perturb a particular image so that it class changes completely. You have an image, you perturb it, and it completely misclassifies that particular image. And next we have is attributional robustness, which says that even though let's say you have now a neural network which is able to predict correctly, is it really able to explain a decision in a more robust fashion so that we can actually use it to use it in tasks like healthcare and all. So I hope like I made it clear like why these two notions are important. Yeah, so I will take a pause and see like if anyone has a question.
Yeah, very good, Puneet. Very interesting concept. Now, how do you, is this restricted to any architecture, or you can get these maps from any architecture?
Yeah, so usually these maps are obtained from the architecture you are using. Like let's say you are using some Resonance 50 and your trained model using Resonance 50, you can use that particular model to get your attribution map. And like it is agnostic to all kind of network architectures. This phenomena and all is I mean pretty much exists in all the network architectures and even all the deep learning domains that you are using. Like whether it is object detection, whether it's segmentation. So it pretty much exists in every, you can say, deep learning domain. That's why it poses a much more threat to deep learning models.
Very good. Yeah, in the audience, if anybody has a doubt, please go ahead, unmute yourself and go ahead.
I guess none so far, sir.
Yeah. So, okay. Okay, Puneet, maybe continue. People will put their questions in the chat. Yeah, so that we'll
Sure,
come
sure.
back again and have a final Q&A. Yeah.
Sure. So I will just kind of finish this slide. So we right now know the concept behind the adversarial robustness and the attribution robustness. So in the equation, right, you can see what is like mathematical way of defining this attributional attack. So B of epsilon is the epsilon ball. That means that the maximum perturbation that you're allowed to perturb the input with. So delta belongs to that particular epsilon ball, and you perturb that particular input x with that particular delta, and A represents the attribution function. You can use any of the existing attribution methods, and D is some distance measure. So mathematically, what he's saying is that you try to find a perturbation delta belonging to this epsilon ball, so that attribution of the perturbed image and the attribution of the actual image are completely different, and that different is defined using this distance notion D. And the condition is that your prediction should be same. I mean, it should not change. So this is how we mathematically define how we can actually create an attributional adversarial example. And to optimize this, you can just directly use this projected gradient descent. Like as I mentioned, how this projected gradient descent is a generic term, like a generic method. You just need to change your loss function and you can use this same optimization procedure to find adversarial examples. So here your loss function will be this particular thing, like distance between the attribution of perturbed and the original image. And you can use the same optimization procedure to find the example, that particular perturbation. So now in this particular work, we focus on this attributional robustness. So adversarial robustness has been addressed in like pretty much in a very big depth in literatures. So, and like when we kind of started that particular this work, so attributional robustness was kind of a new domain. Uh, so we want to try to now make the networks such that their predictions are also robust and their explanations are also robust. So we want both of them. So as you can see, uh, yeah, so here, as you can see, this is the objective that we actually want to uh, minimize. So what we want to minimize is this norm is the distance measure that we are using, and A is, as I said, attributional method that you are using. So what you want to say is that, but particularly you try to find a perturbation that maximizes this distance, that completely changes the neural network explanation. And after finding that particular example, you try to minimize this particular objective. So it's like min-max kind of objective and min-max kind of objective. And in this way, you can kind of make your networks robust to the attributional attacks. So if you can see, it's pretty much like adversarial training. Only the thing is that now in adversarial training, we have standard cross entropy loss because we were playing on the prediction side. We wanted the prediction to get wrong. But in attribution method, the, everything is same, but now we want the explanations to be different. So here we are using a distance which says how much different the attributions of perturbed and the original image are. So yeah, if you can see the analogy between adversarial and attributional robustness, they're pretty much like similar thing. I mean, the only difference is the objective they are trying to minimize. In adversarial robustness, you try to minimize objective, which try to misclassify that particular prediction. In attribution, you try to minimize the objective for the loss, which for the perturbation, which maximizes the difference between the explanations.
So what is the objective here? Objective here?
Yeah, so here this one. So max, you try to find the delta in the SLN wall such that the perturbed attribution and the actual attribution are pretty much different. And once you find that particular delta, you try to minimize this same error for that particular delta.
Okay, thank you.
So it's like saying that you are kind of trying to find the worst case augmentation that should be added to that particular input so that the explanation completely changes. And since now you know that I have this particular example which changes the explanation completely, why not I just pass it to the neural network again so that it can get classified correctly. So this is pretty much the concept behind attributional robustness. Yeah. So discussing about the prior work here. So by that time, like when we were kind of exploring this particular paper, this particular work, so there was only one baseline that came up in like NeurIPS 2019, which was robust attribution regularization. And yeah, so I guess they were the first ones to kind of formulate the objective of the attributional robustness and come up with a method to kind of mitigate that vulnerability. So so the objective is pretty much similar as the previous slide. The only thing is that they are using an integrated gradients map here. And yeah, so here A is just integrated gradients and everything is similar. So this is the naive method that you can kind of think of. So yeah, so any doubts in like how this objective is posed?
Yeah. So, how did you formulate that? Since the prior work is very much like the foundation of work that you have done, how did you formulate that particular factor that you were using, A, will give better results as compared to the baseline, or was it a trial approach where you were trying to recreate this paper and you found that changes could be made?
Yeah, so like as I mentioned like before, we kind of came across a paper which was in ICML and all, ICML 2019 paper, and like they showed some theoretical results there, and we thought that like kind of we can empirically try to kind of implement that particular thing. And I mean, it was more like just kind of implementing that particular method and seeing if it's able to surpass the state of the art method or not. I mean, like luckily we kind of able to surpass that particular method. So but we showed that there are some, we showed mathematically in the later slides that how particularly are we kind of able to achieve state of the art performance. I mean, we showed that in some mathematical formulation how we are able to achieve that.
Also, what was this approach lagging that was
Yeah,
used by?
yeah, coming to that. So yeah, so
Hi,
here you
Puneet.
can see, yes.
Yeah,
Nikhil, go ahead. Yeah.
yeah, I have this query that all these methods of attributions, they are generally used as post hoc explanations, right?
Yes, yes.
From here, I can understand that you are incorporating that into the training.
No, I mean, you can actually calculate the explanations during the training also. I mean, the method is more or less general for similar thing. I mean, you ultimately try to find the explanation of the final trained model, but while training, you need to incorporate certain regularization term that ensures that these explanations should not get changed during the training, so that it doesn't get changed even after like the model is trained.
So after the training, again, you will use the same model to learn the explanations.
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Nikhil,
Yeah.
you can give some background of what you're trying to do so that Puneet knows like which area you're working on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was previously working on this explanation approaches
Yeah.
in model agnostic methods.
Okay.
So I'm a little bit aware of the literature in this.
Very good, very good. Where are you currently working, studying,
Yeah,
Nikhil?
I'm newly joined PhD student at IIT Delhi.
Super. Very good. Congrats. Very good, Nikhil. Yay. Thank you very much. Yeah. Go ahead, Puneet. Thank you.
Sure. So yeah, so the coming to the kind of the thing that this particular prior work was lacking. So let's get back to this particular objective here. So so like I'm kind of just going through this objective because these two objectives are pretty much similar. I mean, the only difference is A here is replaced with integrated gradients, a particular explanation map. So as you can see here, so we want to counter this particular vulnerability during the training. So all these things like the objective we are formulating, this attribution maps we are formulating for the original and the perturbed image during the training, right? So let's say you are at a particular checkpoint right now and you try to find this particular attribution of the perturbed and the actual image here. Okay, now you try to maximize this particular objective, you find the delta and you minimize. But as soon as you minimize, the network weights changes. So network weight changes, and right now that particular attribution map also changes because it is dependent on the particular uh, neural network function that you are using. So like if you are familiar with the moving targets kind of problem, so in which let's say you kind of want to chase a particular target and that target also keeps moving, so it will be very difficult for you to chase that particular target because like both are moving. So it will be, and it will be highly unstable, and even the this robust attribution regularization paper mentions that the method is highly unstable. And I mean, we try to reproduce the results even, so like there is high variation in those results also. So I guess I'm clear like why kind of this is unstable and what this thing is lacking.
One more question, not related to the paper, but a general one that I am very new to research, and I've observed that NeurIPS focuses more on mathematical and theoretical papers, while it's not the case with ECCV or CVPR. Is the assumption correct?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, like NeurIPS are there, like ICML, these conferences assume like some kind of theoretical and mathematical analysis. I mean, you can see a lot of papers which are just empirical, getting accepted in Neurips and all. But for that, like your empirical results need to be kind of more exhaustive and like should like be highly informative and all. I mean, you can just go with some kind of easy to implement incremental methodology without kind of any explanation and all for the Neurips. I mean, for that you can go for CVPR and all because they don't really expect any theorems and all
Right.
in their submission.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, okay. So going to the, so now we are coming to what we have done in that particular paper. So summarizing, we kind of proposing a new training methodology to counter that attributional vulnerability of models and come up with a method which obtains state-of-the-art performance. The second one is yeah, so we showed on a lot of data sets and all that how method is able to achieve superior performance. And at last, we kind of showed an interesting phenomena that indeed, like the models which are robust to attributional attacks can be used in many downstream tasks like localization and segmentation. I mean, we will come to that, and like it's a very kind of fascinating observation. So yeah, I will start with the actual objective of attributional robust training. And like now, I mean, you can assume that we are kind of starting with the methodology, and it's like how we are kind of deriving. Right? So in the very first, you can see the objective that we want to minimize. We have an explanation for the perturbed and the original image, and we find a delta that maximizes this objective. And after finding the delta, we want to minimize it with respect to that particular delta. Okay, so here GOY is the gradient attribution we are using. So gradient attribution, you see, is one of the methods that we listed here. I mean, the paper uses IG, but we are using here is gradient methods. Okay, so as you can see, this objective, you can easily write it as this one by subtracting and adding x plus delta. Using triangular inequality, you can just write this. And this one, this objective, you can further write it as this one because it is bounded by this one because you are taking the max over some perturbation delta. Yeah, and because we want to maximize this, we take max on both sides, and you can see that it becomes bounded. This particular objective gets bounded by this particular function. So now what we can see about this particular function is that this particular gradient, so this particular moving target problem now vanishes because what we have is we have a gradient of x plus delta here and we have x plus delta here. We don't have a gradient, another gradient here. So it is pretty much independent of the neural network you are choosing, right? So now your target is kind of fixed and it gives certain stability to the training algorithm. So I hope like this is clear.
Yes,
Why,
yes, Puneet.
Yeah.
Very good, yeah.
Yeah, so you can see that this particular thing, like the gradient of x plus delta and x plus delta, necessarily quantifies the similarity between the attribution and the original image, right? So what we did was like we proposed attributional laws. We said that you have the gradient of x. Just a minute. Yeah. So this L attribution is the similarity between the gradient and the actual image, and it is the triplet loss because so. Okay, so let me get it more clear. So here G of x of I star is the attribution of x with respect to the actual exam with actual class. Okay, and this no. Yeah. So this G of y of x is the attribution of x with respect to the actual class, and this G of I star of x is the attribution of x with respect to the next most probable class. So let me get the intuition clear. So what we want to do is like, as you can see in the objective, this particular objective is bounded by the similarity between the gradient, the attribution and the actual image. So you have attribution, you have image, and in image space you want to say that your attribution should look like similar to your image, should be much more aligned, because let's say yeah, in this picture you can see that this particular image and this particular attribution are much more aligned. Like if this attribution was noisy and all, you will not be able to say that these two things are not perceptually aligned. You need to say that this particular attribution and the original image are perceptually aligned. That is, you can see that these two things have some resemblance between them. They're not completely independent, like not completely uncorrelated. So what we do is like, so we want to kind of minimize the cosine similarity between the attribution and the actual image, and we want to kind of maximize the similarity between the attribution of the most probable class and the actual image. Am I clear? Like,
Yes, Puneet, we are following.
yeah.
Yeah, following. Please go ahead. Yeah.
So
yeah, if
here we
any
are using this
questions,
cosine distance here.
yeah,
So,
if any questions, please interrupt. It's fine. Yeah, it's fine, Puneet. Please go ahead. Yeah.
sure. Yeah, sure. So yeah, you can look in more into like how we propose this particular objective in our paper. I mean, it's more or less the triplet loss we are using. We want to kind of minimize something between the actual image and the gradient, the attribution of that particular image, and we want to maximize the distance between the attribution of some other image and the actual image. So it's like ensuring that this particular bound is achieved.
So that is
And
the main
now you
proposal,
can
right?
see,
That is the L attribution
yes.
is okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
I mean, in the previous work, you can see they're kind of using both attributions in the objective. But right now, but what we have done is like we have kind of upper bounded it with another objective, which is much more stable than the previous one, because now there is some objective which is the target is now pretty much fixed. It is not much moving. So it prevents the moving target problem here. Yeah. So yeah, this is pretty much like what we are proposing. So instead of this particular loss, we are proposing this particular objective.
Got it.
So the only difference is we are proposing a different objective than the previous one.
Got it.
Yeah. So this figure just summarizes what we are kind of doing finally. So we have an actual image X. You can just follow the numbers. We have an actual example X, and we pass it to the network. We get it logits. We find its standard cross entropy loss here. Now using this particular logit function of this original image, we find two attributions, one belonging to the true class and one belonging to the most probable class. So in multi-class classification, you have more than one classes. So this Y belongs to the actual class, let's say some cat, and this belongs to the dog. So this particular attribution will say that what are the areas in the particular image that correspond to dog, and this particular will say that what are the regions in the image that will correspond to cat. And what we want to say is that these two should align and these should not align, because let's say if the attribution of with respect to dog is somehow located on the image of the cat, you won't be able to, like, it's not trustworthy, because it is kind of saying that you are classifying the cat on the basis that it looks like a dog or something. So I mean, your explanation is different. So we want to maximize between these two, and we want to minimize the distance between these two Selenium maps. And that is explicitly what our L attribution method is. Yeah, so any doubts still here?
So the one GY is the one with perturbation? You want to?
Yeah, so we have this original image, we find its logits, so it is unperturbed here. And now we want to try to find out the saliency map here, like the explanation here. So explanation here is with respect to the actual class. So okay, let me kind of get it more clear. So in multi-class classification, we have more than one classes. Let's say we consider
Yes.
binary things. We have a
Yes,
cat
yes.
and versus dog classifier.
Yes, yes, yes.
And we have an image of a cat. Okay.
Yes.
So you pass it and the model predicts that it is cat. Okay.
Yes.
Now
yes.
we want to try to find out on which regions of the image is the kind of located and which regions the neural network is focusing.
Understood.
Okay, so we want to try its attribution. And so this is the attribution belonging to that particular cat. That means
Okay.
we are asking neural network to find those regions in the image which belongs to class cat. And this G of I star necessarily means we are asking neural network to find regions in that particular image which belong to class dog. And what we want to do is that we want to maximize distance between them because we don't want the saliency map of with respect to dog similar to the actual cat example. We want it completely dissimilar. But at the same time, we want the explanation of the cat with this explanation with respect to cat similar to the actual cat example.
Got it.
So that's why in this sense it is a triplet kind of loss. I mean, it is minimizing something and it is maximizing something.
Okay. Thank you.
So one more thing, like now this is a very naive approach to it. Isn't this adversarial attack somewhat similar to overfitting, where the neural network is learning so much from just one image that it is generalizing that to all the images? Is it something like that?
Yes, exactly. I mean, if you see the papers like recently, so most of the papers actually pose this adversarial robustness is kind of a overfitting kind of problem. I mean, the reason behind the adversarial vulnerability of these examples is that, so you have a kind of manifold, right? I guess you're familiar with the manifold, right?
Right.
I mean, so whatever the training data you have, it lies on certain manifold. And you train your data on that particular manifold, right? So what they have shown is that, so the error that you get on your test set, let's say in your test example, this particular image that gets misclassified. So that particular error arises because of some image lying on that particular manifold. But why your neural network is not able to predict correctly the adversarial example, because it lies slightly different from the actual manifold of that particular training manifold. Right. So the thing is that your neural network is not able to generalize the manifold of the training data exactly. That's why it is missing some points here and there that are causing it to be much more vulnerable.
Okay. Right.
Yes, thank you, Puneet. Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
So just wanted to ask, is it going to mathematical, or I mean, I can skip?
No, this is very good because the paper was really hard to digest. This is better. The paper was really, this is very good. Yeah, take your time.
Sure. So this is pretty much what we are proposing. We are proposing a different objective function.
Hey Puneet, I have a query here. So this approach cannot be applied to pre-trained models now because of this additional constraint that we are training from scratch now, with including the attribution maps. So we cannot use it for pre-trained models, already existing models.
Yes, because I mean, that's why we are kind of training it from scratch, because we know that pre-trained models which are existing are not really robust to these kind of attacks.
Yeah,
that's
so
why we need to kind of start from the scratch.
Yeah, thank you. This spatial correlation, this is used using min-max formulation, right?
Yes.
So how are you training this min-max formulation? So are there any?
Yeah, so it is pretty much similar like but this adversarial objective. So this particular loss function is replaced by our own L attribution objective. And delta
Yeah, from what we know, this min-max formulation is highly unstable, right? Did you find anything like that when you're training this?
No, I mean, like in case of GANs and all, like it is usually unstable, but like in kind of classification and all, it's pretty much stable. I mean, it's not that much of unstable and all. I mean, the prior work was more unstable because of the objective they are proposing. So we are kind of mitigating that particular thing. I mean, in general, if you see adversarial training and all in that particular min-max objective, it is not that much unstable. I mean, you pretty much get very small variation when you run multiple runs.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Nikhil,
I mean,
what
it's
were you
not-
getting at? What were you getting at?
Sorry.
No,
So
what
the,
were,
when using min-max formulation in case of GANs, it is very unstable. The training is very unstable. So I was asking, did he observe any such thing while training this min-max
Okay.
formulation?
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is like our proposition here, and we now connect it to the adversarial robustness. So what we now say is that, okay, so you know adversarial robustness, you know a way to also make networks robust to attributional attacks. So is there any relation between them? So in this particular kind of section, we say that indeed the attributional robustness and adversarial robustness of the networks are related. Related in the sense that if you train a model which is attributionally robust, that is having robust explanations, it inherently becomes robust to adversarial attacks. So there is a kind of implication here. So you have a model which is robust, has robust explanations, and if you have that particular method which is robust to explanations, it will be indeed robust to adversarial attacks also. And like here is a small kind of derivation of how we can intuitive mathematically kind of say that. So like I said before, A is here the attribution method, and like, so yeah, so let me just get here first. So adversarial examples here mean that we want to kind of try to find an example in the local neighborhood of original example such that it gets misclassified, so that f of x is not equal to actual y. So this is the objective of adversarial attack, right? And yeah, so in this particular section, we refer to certain kind of attribution method, which is known as the axiomatic attribution method. So it is like general any attribution method, but the only thing is that it satisfies a particular property here that if you sum up the attributions of all the pixels, it gives rise to a neural network prediction. I mean, this is a completeness axiom, and like methods like integrated gradients satisfy this particular kind of axiom, and hence are known as axiomatic attributions also. So I will go, so here I want to say that this particular explanation, this particular prediction of f of x and f of x dash, I want to kind of bound this. X dash here is the adversarial example that we are calculating here. So I can replace this f of x with this particular kind of a of x, and what I can say by using triangle inequality, I can further decompound it using this particular objective. So that means that the difference between the prediction of actual and the adversarial image is bounded by like the difference between their attributions. So in case, so if we are able to somehow able to kind of minimize the difference between the attribution of X and adversarial image, we will indeed be able to achieve adversarial robustness. I mean, the prediction will not be like too much different. Am I clear in that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, this is pretty much all the theory and all. So like if you have kind of any questions, you can ask, and then we can go on to experiments.
Yes. If anybody has any question, please go ahead. Now is a good time to. Yeah. Yeah, please go ahead, Puneet. We'll have anyway Q&A at the end. So
Sure.
you after the result.
So coming to the results, so like we took like 4 standard data sets that was used by the prior method, robust attribution regularization, and we report. So we took three things. The very first one is a natural model. Natural model is simple regular training you have. PGD10 is the adversarial training, and ART is ARC training. And here the IG sum and IG sum normal previous baselines that I mentioned. Okay, so we report on like two important metrics that kind of quantify the change in the attribution. So the first one is Kendall coefficient. So let's say you have, so I just told that attribution methods try to find the intensity, right? Let's say you have a zero, but for a particular attribution, you have a zero intensity. That means that neural network is not focusing on that particular pixel. But if a particular pixel has intensity very high, that means the neural network is focusing on that particular pixel while making a decision. So we can actually rank those pixels of the image in order of their intensity, and we can actually have a ranking loss between that particular example, original example, and its perturbed example. So in this way, this Kendall coefficient measures how much are the similar top intensity values are. I guess I'm clear, right?
Could you please? Yeah.
Yeah, there was a question.
Yeah, Puneet, yeah, could you just explain that once again? Just once again.
Yeah, sure. So Kendall coefficient. So in Kendall coefficient, what we are doing is, let's say you have an image and you are trying to find the attribution here. Let me just go back here. Yeah, you have an image and you have an attribution of this. So this attribution map is necessarily as intensity map here. Like the black pixel denotes that neural network is not focusing on that.
Yes.
And this particular high intensity pixels mean that neural network is focusing on that.
Yes.
So these are all scalar values, and you can actually order all these pixels in order of their intensity level.
Yes.
So what you have is that, so you have an actual image, you have its attribution map, you have its perturbed image, and you have its attribution map.
Yes.
And you find out what are the highly intensity pixels, and you try to have a ranking loss between them. Let's say pixel 1 was highest intensity in this particular example, but in this example, pixel 2 was highest intensity pixel. So these are two different things. That means that there should be a penalty for that. But let's say the highest ranking pixel is same for both of them, and the second highest intensity pixel is same for both of them. That means that the loss is very less between these two attributions. These two attributions are pretty much similar. So this is
not able to identify. So it's not able to identify between perturbed and original.
Yes, yes. So that means the more, so the more the Kendall coefficient is, the more you can say the similar are the attributions of the perturbed and the original image. That is what we actually want, right? And the top K intersection means that you want to just find out how much pixels are intersecting between the actual and the original image, perturbed image. So in these two images, if you can see, like if these particular attributions are similar, then the intersection will be full intersection. But I mean, if they are completely different, their intersection might be 0 and very less. So if the intersection is very low, we can say that the attribution is completely different. But if the intersection is high, we can say that attributions are very much similar. So these two are the metrics that we are using to quantify the change in the attribution maps when you perturb the input.
So this is predefined in literature or defined by you?
Predefined in literature. I mean, previous work defined it.
Got it.
So as you can see, I mean, it's pretty much evident that the kind of our method is able to achieve almost state of the art in both of these metrics here in almost all data sets. And as a side way, we are just reporting what are the accuracies here and adversarial accuracy. So as you can see, the natural model, the adversarial accuracy almost 0. For a model which is explicitly trained to mitigate the problem of adversarial robustness, it is 44%. And for our model which tries to mitigate the problem of attributional robustness, it is still able to achieve a very good adversarial robustness. I mean, it's not at par with the state of the art because it is not really explicitly achieving robustness. it is like kind of inherently achieving because of this particular relation here. So yeah, so we can say that this attribution robustness kind of is an upper bound for adversarial robustness also. If you can able to mitigate that problem, you are able to mitigate the problem of robustness, adversarial robustness also.
Very good.
So yeah, any more doubts?
So while reporting this in the flower data set, okay, only in that case you have less.
Yeah. I mean, by one, I guess 1%.
Got it. Very good. Okay, Brent. Yeah, please go ahead.
Sure.
Hi, Puneet.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Chinmay, please.
During evaluation, let's say the attribution map of the original image, if it is corrupted, or if let's say if it's wrong, then in that case the evaluation is completely wrong, right?
Yes.
Okay. So is there a way to ensure like we are going correctly? I mean, in this evaluation criteria, we are only comparing with the original attribution map, right? And if the original attribution map is not correct, in that case, the evaluation is completely wrong. So is there any way to ensure that the original attribution map was correct?
I mean, like, if you can see from these metrics, like Kendall coefficient and top intersection metrics, you can't really judge. I mean, what you can say is that if like they're very high, you can say that most of the attributions for themselves correct, the original image attributions. But if it's very low, it might be possible that some of them are might be possible that the actual image attribution is itself different, or it might be possible that it is because the attributional vulnerability. So high metrics, high high value of the metrics we can make sure that most of the predictions are right. So in later of the slides, I will show how we can actually quantify this particular kind of the accuracy of this particular attribution using say segmentation masks and bounding boxes. I mean, majorly what we showed in the later slide is that you can actually use this particular model to generate segmentation marks as well as bounding boxes of a particular image. And as if,
go ahead.
So what you can do is like, because you know right now that we have ground truth bounding box or segmentation marks already in the data set. So we know somehow the ground truth, and we have that particular attribution map. So we can take the IOU and mean IOU between these two things and see how much like is the attribution map aligning with the bounding box or segmentation mask.
Got it.
Does this answer your question?
I think Chinmay, there's some internet connection problem, but I wanted to build on what you wanted to say. In which cases do we anticipate such situation, like the one he described? Is there any situation where we anticipate?
Which situation?
Chinmay asked.
Where are these attacks more common? Is there some particular data set which is more prone to these kind of attacks, or some particular feature which attracts this kind of attack, or is it generally happening with all the image classification situations?
Yeah, so it is pretty much like already founded that these phenomena exist in almost all data sets and all the training, all the networks. So you can just take any of the data sets in the image computer vision, and I can just blindly say that they will be vulnerable to these kind of attacks. The thing that how much vulnerable they are and how much not vulnerable they are depends on the data size. Let's say you have a very complex data set, let's say ImageNet or something, which have a lot of examples, and so that kind of particular data set is much more vulnerable to these kind of attacks as compared to some, let's say, MNIST or some other very simple data set. Like simpler data sets, the vulnerability still exists, but is very much low. But for like complex data sets like SPAR 100 and you can say ImageNet and all, they are very much highly vulnerable.
And
Yeah.
can we generalize that adversarial attacks are limited to supervised learning, or they can be in unsupervised or semi-supervised as well? Because the network is anyway trying to generalize the image by itself. So, do we have some sort of study with this?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess most of the literature is more focused on the supervised kind of learning, but I guess I'm not actually, I don't remember that, but this was a recent paper, I guess, which shows like adversarial examples for autoencoders and something. So yeah, I guess we can also use this particular notion in case of unsupervised also.
Right.
Chinmay is back. Chinmay,
Hello.
can you
Yeah,
just,
yeah.
did it answer your question?
Actually, there was a network connection, so I got completely disconnected from that. So
Repeat, yeah. Please repeat your
Yeah.
question clearly once again. Clearly, please repeat the question. Please.
Yeah. So my question was that in the evaluation, so we are comparing with the original images attribute map, attribution map. So in the case if the attribution or the images original attribution map is, let's say, incorrect, so your evaluation criteria is it goes completely wrong. So in that case, I wanted to ensure is there any way to make sure that the original attribution is correct. Yeah.
Yeah, so like in the later slides, I will like mention kind of a way in which we are kind of evaluating that particular thing only. So what we show in later slide is that our model is like we can actually use our particular model in case of segmentation mask, and object localization also. I mean, we can use that particular model of ours to find the object localization and segmentation mask. And now, because if we are using those data set for which we are available with ground truth segmentations and bounding boxes, we can just calculate the mean IOU and all to see how much accurate is the original attribution map to the
Yeah,
actual
yeah, yeah.
segmentation or bounding
Yeah,
boxes.
Chinmay, please just stick around. You'll see it. Yeah, please go ahead, Puneet. Yeah, yeah. Please go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Puneet.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so this is just a qualitative analysis for method. Yeah, so as you can see, this is the original image. This is the put-up image. And you can see the attribution completely changes. Like from this one, you have the attribution of this particular target image. And this is for the natural model, like the model which is just trained naively. So the second we have our own method. As you can see, this particular image and this particular put-up image, the attributions are much more aligned. They're not completely different. So this is just a qualitative analysis that our method is able to achieve much more kind of robust explanations as compared to the previous baselines. Yeah, so this is just another Appalachian study in which we show that our method is also able to achieve superior performances on many other common corruptions. So there was this CIFAR-10C dataset which was released recently. So it contains like 50 visual perturbations and different severities. So these are not adversarial perturbations and all. These are more like natural perturbations like fog. You have some zoom error, you have some blur and like pixelation noise and all. So these are kind of natural, we can see, corruption that you might encounter in real world. So you can see that even on those kind of benchmarks, we are able to achieve superior performance in most of the cases. I mean, some of the cases we are not inferior, but most of the cases we are able to achieve a far superior performance. Yeah. So now coming to Chinmay's like question. So now we are kind of focusing on a very fascinating kind of observation that we observed. And yeah, so let me first introduce like what is the kind of formulation of weakly supervised object localization. So you can see that in object localization, in which you want to find out the bounding box of a particular image, you train a network, and for that you have actually the ground truth bounding boxes also. So that is complete supervision. You have an image and you have a corresponding bounding box also. So you can just train that particular network of yours on that particular object localization task, right? But what is weak supervised localization is that you're not given bounding box at all. What you are given is just the label information. Let's say this particular this particular image belongs to this class, not the ground truth bounding boxes. And you want to try come up with a method which actually is able to achieve bounding boxes for that particular image. I mean, this is really crucial because it might not be able to possible. It might not be possible for you to completely annotate the whole data set. I mean, it's really cumbersome to even assign labels to each and every image. And what you want right now, what you also want right now is also the object bounding boxes also. So that might be like really like completely intensive. So we want to kind of, that's why we focused on the domain of weakly supervised object localization, because we already have the label information and we just to try to come up with a method which tries to calculate this segment, these bounding boxes with just label information. So just to make sure we are not using any bounding box information while training at all. So there are some prior art in weakly supervised object localization. I mean, which is something like attention-based dropout layer. So I'm not going into detail of the particular paper, but you can refer that. So we calculate that these some metrics like top one allocation and GT known location. So what these metrics denote that is that top one lock is that, let's say you have an image, you try to find its attribution using our own model, right? And now you have also the ground truth of bounding box also. So top one allocation assigns this particular pair value 1 if that particular image correctly classified and the IOU between the attribution and the ground truth bounding box is greater than 0.5. That means you will be given a value 1 based on two things, like you are able to classify the image correctly, plus you are able to classify your mean IOU between the attribution map and the saliency map. Attribution map and the ground truth object mask is greater than 0.5. So as you can see in these metrics, we are able to achieve a superior performance than the previous state of the art weakly supervised object localization baselines using gradient saliency map. Yeah, so any doubts here?
No, Puneet. Please go ahead. Yeah. At the end, we'll just have. Go ahead.
Yeah. So here just qualitative results here. So this is art, our model, and this is ADL, our baseline. And as you can see, our model is able to better predict the bounding boxes as compared to the weakly supervised baseline that was prior state of the art. I mean, you can see in these examples that we are much able to better localize the particular image in the particular object in the image. So this Chinmay, does this answer your question, like how we are kind of?
Yeah, Chinmay, please go ahead if you have a follow-up thing.
Yeah, I got it. Basically, so you're using IOU scores to evaluate whether the original image this was correct, and based on qualitative evaluations too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, we also showed in case of segmentation mass also. I mean, you can do pretty much similar. I mean, calculate the mean IOU and all, then see, and we showed that like our method is able to achieve better IOU than all the previous baselines, which pretty much says that the attribution calculated by our method is pretty much correct. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, Chinmay, you can just go ahead and introduce yourself briefly so that Puneet knows your background, what you're trying to do.
So I'm basically a final year student, and I'm working on multitask architectures right now. And currently, I'm also interning at a university in France, where I'm
Super.
working in the unsupervised language generation task. So,
Which university?
University of Caen, Normandy, France.
Super. Very good.
Thank you.
Yeah. Go ahead, Puneet.
Yeah, so this is another like kind of qualitative evaluation in which we calculate the gradient of the attribution in particularly of the images. And as you can see, for a model which is trained regularly, these attributions are completely noisy. You don't have any kind of information to say that it is really focusing on the actual object or not. For adversarial trained model, it is like better, and for our particular trained objective, it is best. Like as you can see, these two things are perceptually kind of similar. You can say that, I mean, it's focusing on the right part here. So this is also one of the way to say that qualitatively evaluate the correctness of the attribution maps that we are generating. Yeah, so another thing is this image generation thing. So, I mean, if you can see that adversarial robust and attributionally robust models, so are just not limited to just robustness thing. I mean, there was a recent paper which showed that you can do pretty much all the image generation and image in painting kind of tasks with just a single adversarially robust model. I mean, a single model to rule them all. So you can just do image in painting, you can do kind of super resolution, you can do kind of what you can say image generation also. So with just using a single adversarial robust model, because their gradients are more perceptually aligned with the actual image. Like as you can see that for a natural image, the gradients are completely noisy, so they don't have any information within them. But for a adversarial robust model or an attributionally robust model, these gradients are much more perceptually aligned with the actual image. That's why they are useful in tasks like image generation and all. And we can, as you can see, that we kind of generated some examples from the CIFAR-10 dataset using our method. As you can see, these are some random samples generated, which pretty much looks like the actual classes. Yeah, so I guess this is all.
Yeah, so which was that paper that you built upon in the references?
Yeah, I just. Yeah, this one, 5th.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Good, good. Very good explanation, Puneet. Really, really spectacular. Good, good. Thank you for your time.
Thanks.
We'll take some questions now quickly. If any questions are there.
Hi, Puneet.
Yeah, hi, Nikhil.
Yeah, thank you for detailed presentation. It was very
Thanks.
interesting, especially the part where we talked about spatial correlation and connection with adversarial robustness.
Yeah.
So I have this query, like I have come across a paper called in CVPR 2020. The paper title is Sensitivity of Attribution.
Can you be a little bit loud, Nikhil? Can you please be a little
Hello?
loud?
Hello,
Yeah,
is it audible now?
Yeah.
Yeah, Puneet, I have come across this paper from CVPR 2020. The paper is titled as Sensitivity of Attribution Methods.
Yeah.
So what is the goal is that each attribution method has a specific parameter again. For instance, if you take integrated gradients, we have this number of number, right, capital N, which is a hyperparameter.
Yeah.
So again, they have showed that the attribution methods are highly sensitive to these hyperparameters. So
yes.
So can we like again, how reliable are these attribution methods again because of this hyperparameter effect of this hyperparameter?
Yeah, so like regarding this attribution map, so I mean, like one thing we need to be clear about that is like they're kind of model agnostic. They don't depend on the model you are using. And like the attribution map that you are generating has a like pretty much gets affected a lot by your model, right? I mean, it depends on two things. The method you are using, like the integrated gradients, gives far better attributions than normal gradients, and the model that you are using. So, I mean, like if you talk about the reliability of these methods, like you need to kind of fix like the model kind of you are using. Let's say, I mean, we observe that like in case of adversarial trained model and attributionally trained model, using simple gradients and integrated gradients doesn't, I mean, the difference is not that much. I mean, pretty much like they were similar. But like if you fix your kind of model to a naturally trained model, which is not robust to any kind of perturbations, we can see that a lot of these. So, I mean, you can see a lot of difference between these methods. I mean, integrated gradients and gradients. So, I mean, I personally think like, I mean, you need to fix the notion like which kind of models you are evaluating on before seeing the sensitivity of attribution methods.
Yeah. Obviously, that needs to be done because for this paper also they fixed the model beforehand. So, and again, I have this query. If you train the model separately without this adversarial robustness, and after incorporating this adversarial robustness into the model, did you observe any change in the accuracy?
Yeah, I mean,
On
there
which
was a
model
drop
shows?
in like, I mean, yeah, as you can see, there is a trade-off between the natural and the robust accuracy here.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I think you're familiar with the trade-off between them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, you can see it is pretty much needed. I mean, as you can see, as a data set become more complex, like CIFAR-10 and all, this trade-off is much more prominent as compared to like GST, RB, and SVHN.
Yeah. Thank you.
Spectacular, Puneet. I think there are no more questions, but now I know you are trying to extend this work. I know it is still under work, but what are the possibilities that you think to extend this, or to what are the other research topics that are possible?
Yeah, so I mean, one thing that I personally feel is that like the one thing that we kind of focus is that the trade-off between this natural and adversarial accuracy. I mean, if you can see that you do get a very good adversarial accuracy, but at a cost of natural accuracy. So the one extension could be we can somehow able to mitigate this kind of trade-off like as much as possible. And like, I mean, this can be one of the extensions, but like what kind of thing I'm much more interested is in like this downstream, like using these particular models in these downstream tasks. I mean, you can do whatever you want with the classification now, but it's like there's a very fascinating observation that these particular models can also be used in downstream tasks like object localization and segmentation things. So I'm just kind of looking like if there are any particular downstream tasks then in which like attributionally robust or adversarial robust models can particularly benefit from that.
Good, Puneet. I think we covered all bases. Thank you very much for the detailed presentation. We look forward to more papers from you in the future, and hopefully you'll make a very good career out of this. Thank you everyone for joining in. I think we can wrap it up. And,
Hi, Puneet, one last question.
Yeah, go ahead, Nikhil.
Sir, regarding this explanation methods, have you come across any such approaches in case of non-classification tasks? Like,
could you just repeat, Nikhil, clearly?
So all the explanation methods are mostly based on classification tasks. So have you come across any approaches of like explanation approaches in case of non-classification tasks?
I mean, I came across a paper recently, I mean, which tries to explain the variational autoencoders. I mean, I haven't read the paper exactly, but there was paper somewhere like which tries to explain like these variational autoencoders and all.
So could you tell which conference it is or any?
Just look it up, Puneet, no problem. You just pull up the browser and look
I'm not sure about the paper. Let me just check.
Or Nikhil, what you can do offline, you can just email Puneet. That will be great.
Sure.
Yeah,
offline.
sure, you can.
Yep, just email him so that now he is already 1.5 hours. He's also tired. So let us give him a break. And offline, you can please get in touch with him.
Yeah,
Puneet
sure.
More than happy to help you out.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, Puneet. Thank you very much. Incredible.
Thanks, Puneet.
Thanks,
Puneet, for your time and effort.
Thanks for having me.
And you started from the very basic, even explaining what is an adversarial attack, so that is greatly appreciated. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shambhavi, for inviting him. So we can end the meeting now. Yeah, thank you.